Hello, everybody. This is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership, and I have a special guest coming to us from the great state of Texas, someone I've known for many, many years back in my days with IHG. And I'd say Nancy Patel is a legend in a lot of ways, not just as a developer, but in recent years has really kind of moved to the forefront of what I would call a woman in leadership, especially in the hotel development space and within the ranks of AAHOA, very well known and respected. Nancy, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Wonderful to be alive.
It is. You make it sound so simple, just wonderful and good to be alive. So let's dig in and if someone were writing an article about you, Nancy, what kind of words do you think they'd use? And where that question came from, I have no idea. It just popped into my heart. So what would they say about you?
I think they'd say that I'm energetic, I'm powerful, I'm confident. They would say that I am a mentor. I
Hmm.
have a lot of mentors. So if I could keep going on, or you could stop right there. I mean, I think that's enough to say maybe what I portray to the people that are out there.
Beautiful. Well, I love powerful and I love mentor. Mentor to me means that you have the heart of helping others and wanting to see others succeed. Is that possibly accurate?
Absolutely accurate. Yes.
Yeah. Well, to be a good mentor, some might say you've had to have a good mentor or you know of a good mentor in your life. So if you'd like to mention a couple that have helped you, Nancy, move along and
Well,
get to where you are.
my biggest mentor was obviously my father, who passed away 2 years ago in July of 2019. He was a well-educated man back
Mm.
from England, and he was one of my biggest mentors who always pushed me to do my best. And I think my second mentor would be my husband, of course, for 33 years. He's watched me flourish from a basic housewife to a business entrepreneur to a
Mhm.
leader. So, and he's guided me a lot. So, those two are my biggest mentors, and they end up being men.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for the loss of your father. I too lost my dad relatively recently, January of last year, and he was. I had three heroes growing up. Roger Staubach, as you may know, was a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. John Wayne, a famous actor in Western movies, and then my father as well. But what would you tell the audience? What would you tell the listeners relative to what makes a good mentor?
Well, the mentor has to have a connection and connectivity with the person across. I feel like it's not just the basic skill sets, but I think a mentor is one that they can openly talk to, whether they're right or wrong, the guidance that they need. I feel like discipline is also needed from my part, because if I
Hmm.
want to lead by example, discipline is motivation is great, Greg. I think motivation is only 1% of any success. I think 99% goes to discipline. Because if we don't have discipline and consistency, I feel like that's not being a good mentor.
Hmm. I love the consistency. Tell me a little bit more about discipline. I'm sure you're not talking specifically from a parenting standpoint. Discipline to do be what? Be more specific.
So, discipline in your work ethics, your career, your
Mm.
goals of entrepreneurship, right?
Sure.
Everybody can say that they want to dream to be this person. Let's just say, like Elon Musk, right? But even people like Elon Musk are very disciplined. You have to make sure that daily you don't get caught up into other things where it kind of distracts you from your focus of your goals that you have. So,
Sure.
discipline is meaning like time management,
Hmm.
um, learning to say no when you need to. I
Yeah.
think, and discipline is consistency without giving up.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love how you say discipline is not getting distracted on what your focus is. And for me, it's easy to get unfocused, frankly,
Yeah.
and it's easy to chase something that looks like it might work, and this might be exciting and sexy and or easy. And meanwhile, why are you really here, right? Why are we really doing what we're doing? And my why, short of making a significant change, leaving a great job with IHG, going through divorce in late 13, and kind of reinventing myself I understand exactly what you mean. However, I would say that I've been in the last few years better at it than I was the first couple, trying to find out what it was like to build a coaching and consulting firm. So, what are some of the things that might have distracted you early on, and how have you decided to stay so focused, so disciplined?
So let me take you back to 1995 when I got 6 years into marriage. When we were young, I got married at 19, engaged at 18, obviously. Met my husband at a wedding. Of course, usually back then it was arranged marriages in the Asian culture.
Sure.
However, at that time we never took life seriously. Hey, whatever, if we dreamed something, we just dreamed it. We never had an action plan or goal.
Mm,
And even if we listed 3 or 4 things to do a day, did we really accomplish it, right? But what turned my whole perspective on this was in 1995, between two hotels, I was delivering some what you call it, air heaters, because it was very cold that night. And I went into a major car accident with my 18-month-old son, which left me paralyzed. And doctors had no hope. Greg, I went into mental depression because I couldn't have my family just take care of me. It was like I was dead living alive.
mm,
And that really changed my perspective, because when you're sitting there and you can't do anything, you took life for granted. You took
yes.
time for granted. Time is one of the most biggest commodities you can have.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, being in bed for 2 years, I wish that I could just turn back the time. And when I do have the time, that I would use it wisely. And that's when I thought discipline was needed. We took our time freely. And so when 2 years came, I almost took pills to just say that was the easy way out, to just, not be a burden for everybody that's taking care of me. But luckily, when I went into that mental depression, it's called post-operative depression. When you've had a big operation, they put steel rods in my back for 12 inches, and so like a foot long. And so I had
Mm,
to talk to my husband, and finally talking to someone like him that encouraged me not to give up. I pulled through that. And then once I got out of it and I started walking with therapy and encouragement, I decided that I wanted to go out there and make a difference, whether a few years down the road I'd serve on associations like AAHOA or Live Up Atida Samaj, LPS of USA, becoming the first female there too after 30 years. I wanted to do something to impact people's life, to encourage them, to unleash their potential, because
yeah.
we have this one chance, one opportunity to live life. Look, you don't live life just once. I say you live life, you only die once,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's where we need to change that adage that we say, oh, we only have one life to live. No, we have many days to live. We only have
Yes.
one day to die. So that is what has encouraged me to discipline, consistency, distractions that I used to do before 1995. I realized that we take time for granted, and that's what drove me to this.
Wow. Talk about perspective. I mean, if I wouldn't have known why time and opportunities and life itself was so precious, I would have assumed that you were like a lot of us. We just kind of go through life and we have opportunities to do better and, a swing and a miss, so to speak. But holy smokes, for you to be looking at what possibly could have been the end. Let's give your husband a shout out of thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for being your rock. I mean, being your partner in life, no pun intended. And wow, I mean, um, yeah, God bless. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I didn't know the story. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that.
Many people don't know. And when you get into positions like this, I mean, you have a lot of downfalls, because females are known to be more assertive. When we're strong, we're taken the wrong way. Um, you know, I learned a lot through all these years, but what has made me think back, and what makes me think back, is when I go back to the 2 years and I look back and reflect and I say, hey, nothing's worse than that.
Right.
I come out of any solution. Even I had what we had two downfalls between 2001 and three, and then
Uh-huh.
we had the 2008 to 2012 economic downfall, and
Yeah.
nothing stopped me at that point. Nothing dragged me down, because all I would do is reflect back to that moment.
Sure. Well, perspective again, I bring up. So when you are looking at other leaders within organizations, I mean, you're connected to a lot of a lot of brands. You've developed quite a few hotels, you and your husband and others that you're involved with. When you think of just leadership in general, and we'll talk about women in leadership here in a second, what kind of qualities and attributes of a great leader, Nancy, would you recognize as critical beyond discipline? What kind of leaders do you like to follow and why?
So what I would look for is a leader that would listen.
Mm,
So that way, not every perspective is from that leader itself, but from the outside of their, within their team,
sure.
outside of their focus. So a good listener is one of the biggest, I think, attributes. I think some of these leaders that I've come across, and then I would think another attribute that would look in a leader is giving the person a chance to prove themselves. Not just shallowing down their idea because it's not something they've done before, or it's an idea that's not maybe doable until somebody's tried it. So
Sure.
a leader that allows someone to expand on their idea and maybe give it a try, and at least make that person feel like, hey, the person listened to me. Third thing is communication. Communication is huge between leaders and their team. They're not always going to agree, but sometimes it's good to agree to disagree, right?
Sure.
But communication is huge. I think these three are the most important, besides the discipline, the consistency, and all that.
Sure.
And I think just building great, strong relationships and not treating everyone like they're an employee, instead of making them feel like team players.
Yeah, listening, being available to listen. I've heard curious, someone that asks you questions, so your input can be considered. I love the word allowing people to try and even make mistakes.
Right.
And communication is a beautiful one because we can do it in so many ways, via email, via text, via phone. But one of the things I've always learned, Nancy, is listening, but with your eyes too, letting the person know that you see them, you hear them, you understand them, you value them, and frankly, you appreciate them. And
Showing the importance of that person across you also makes a huge difference. It makes them
yeah,
feel valuable, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So, as a woman in leadership, a woman in leadership within the hospitality space, what are some of the things that you've learned that are difficult for this industry to recognize the true potential of women in general, women in leadership, or has it been difficult?
Well, I'm a different woman. I'm like thankful to my husband who's been very supportive. Not everybody gets that, especially for the Asian American Indian women. Yes, we had challenges. First of all, the challenges was in our own culture,
Mhm.
where we were just to be housewives, and just originally our parents were like that. My mom, my grandparents, my grandmother, they were, back then they couldn't do anything. They can't go expand. They had to take care of the family, the social life. So that was the biggest challenge that we had to come out of 33 years ago, right? Um, I don't know if you know Helen Zaver.
Mhm.
She is out in Atlanta, Georgia. She was one of my industry mentors when she went into AAHOA the first time. And when I saw her, I felt like, you know what? She's the first one that stepped up. Let me step up too, so others would follow. And the challenge is that we never had a voice that would count as much as our counterparts in
Sure.
associations like AHOA and other brands that are there. So I was actually the first one with two other women, Hina Patel and Hina Desai and Kalpana Patel at that time she was out of Kansas City. We created the first women's platform in
Mm.
AHOA in 2009 for that very main reason that we needed a voice, we needed representation out in the industry. So when we go fight advocacy too, because we were the backbone, we were handling the hotels while our husbands were working too, but they were expanding.
Right.
So, we needed voice, and voice that would count. And today, finally in AHOA, what do we see? A female president
Yeah.
after so
Love it.
many years. Yeah, Laura Lee, she's a very good colleague of mine. Just seeing the strides she's just made in the last few months. So our voice was very, very challenging to be heard. We didn't see many women sit on the boards across some of these brands.
Yeah.
So now the brands are coming in with women representation. I think one of the biggest brands is not because I do own the Red Roof Inn, but the Red Roof Inn brand does have many women sitting there. And others are following. G6 is following. I'm sure Marriott and all those guys are following. But women are now getting a place on the table.
Yeah. When you think of diversity, uh, women and men in leadership, it may not be the proper use of diversity. Or when you think of equity, you think of inclusion. Do you put women in leadership in that conversation? And if you do, is it fair to say that with some diverse thinking, some diverse background, more equity, meaning more women in leadership, and certainly inclusion? Don't include us just because, include us because, A, we have a different and perhaps better and more powerful way of saying things, and frankly, a more effective and an efficient way of creating relationships. So, what does all that mean to you, and how might you put women in leadership and DEI, if you will, in the same conversation?
I mean, like I said, I don't think women should be placed because we're just a female in two positions are put on a board or association, which AAHOA does too, and so does LPS, the community. When I ran for my position, I didn't take the women's position because I wanted to be equal
Yeah.
to the everybody that was on the board. So when I became the first female regional director in Georgia, at that time when I was in Georgia for 20 years by marriage, and still, moved to Texas after that. But I was the first female. There's not been another female there. However, I didn't want to take the easy route and take the female positions because I don't feel like I needed that position.
I
I'm
agree.
equal. I could do the same amount of work. I could be diversified. My opinions, my strengths, my capability was just as equal to my counterparts.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Women in Travel Thrive?
I've heard briefly about it.
It's all about elevating women in leadership in the hospitality space specifically. It's a group. A lot of them are from Expedia. Rachel Humphrey, which I know you're
Yes.
familiar with,
Yeah.
she sits on their board. And in fact, speaking of DEI, Rachel and David Kong, former
Yes.
chairman of
Best
Best Western,
West.
has started. It's a beautiful opportunity. And I don't want to call it a movement because, well, heck, I'll tell you, my parents multiplied or divorced when I was 9. My dad married a woman. Her name's Connie Aden, still alive, and she was as high up as any man in Mountain Bell at the time, Albuquerque, New Mexico, later U.S. West. She later became the president of ABWA, American Business Women's Association, and huge association, global organization. And she made it really clear to me when I was about 15 years old. I was a sophomore in high school. I'll never forget this. She said, "Greg, at some point you're going to recognize that there's vast differences between men and women. But I'm telling you, women can do a lot of the things men can do just as well, if not better. And I recommend that you start to believe what I'm saying, because that's what I want you. It's how I want you to grow up. I don't want you to grow up like a lot of the men uh, think that there is a place for this person and that person." And I tell you what, that influence was early in my life. I wrote papers on it in school. And in fact, I hired Lori Gardner, who, as you know, may just passed away, as one of the first female regional directors of development IHG had ever seen. And
Yeah.
not that I had to. It was Bob Ekman and I, in fact, made the joint decision. But gosh, she turned out to be just a jewel, an absolute jewel. And I just wish there were more opportunities that were, I don't know the word I'm trying to use, without any need, but a desire to have. And let's see what happens. And I believe there's going to be a lot more changes coming down the pipe. And as the old guard, so to speak, not only retires but pulls their head out of their arse,
Yeah.
we're going to see some neat things happening. And I smile saying it because I'm not in the industry anymore, but I coach people that are in the industry today, and I can see it every single day, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And I just feel like that before women were just, not enthusiastic because of all the lashback that we do get. But now they're stepping up out of
Yeah,
that, and they're seeing that there's some horizon now. Women are underestimated, I think. Men just
absolutely.
don't read the women that well, that.
Yep.
So a perspective, when we give a perspective to them, it might seem like an argument, right? And it's not. Or our confidence is not showing our ego. It's just that we're confident when we speak.
Mhm.
And I just feel like we just read on, and I think that was the biggest challenge.
So, speaking of women in leadership in the hospitality space, who within the brands, and yeah, if you don't want to mention them by title or by brand, maybe just rattle off a couple that you admire, you respect, you appreciate, and frankly, you see them as a leader of women in leadership. Who might a few of those who might a few of those names be?
So I'm inspired by Marina McDonald, who's in Red Roof, because I got to give him a hand. Just recently, we went and had the women's forum, and with the Red Roof team, George Lambert, who's
Yeah,
the president, they did a fantastic job in elevating the women. I think empowerment, we already empowered enough. I
yeah,
think the next step is elevation, right? And
yep,
so they done a great, fantastic job with the forum that was just really jam packed with great interactive sessions and brought out many women's confidence, I feel like.
hmm,
Another person that obviously is very intriguing to me is a colleague that I know I helped elect, and it's not a brand association, but with the AAHOA is Jagriti Panwala.
hmm,
Jagriti Panwala, when she came in, she looked towards me as a mentor, and when she went in and took the position for all these years, she just amazed many of us of what it took for her in some of the most difficult and challenging times too, and she came out
sure.
really well. And
Nancy, if you were addressing uh, a group of young women who getting ready to graduate school, college, grad school, whatever, and they asked, "What are some of the things that I as your audience?" If the questions were, "What do you recommend that we do differently and better than our parents, so to speak?" So this is a 20, 22, 24-year old woman looking you for advice on how to be a good, not only a great steward of the industry, but a leader within the industry. What would you tell that group of ladies,
um,
young women?
yeah, well, things have changed, right? Back from where my parents used to operate the hotels, and when we operate the hotels, and now the new generation coming in, which is my daughter's age, 18, to 20s, right? What I tell them is they have to have an open mind. Um,
Mhm.
Also, each staff employee that they have within the company, the team, they're going to have to work with each one's generation. I
Yeah,
mean, from generation to generation is different. So how we approach people, communication still is going to be there, but how we differently handle it is according to the generation that you're talking to.
yeah,
So diversified generation communication is going to be very important. I mean, obviously, discipline and consistency is always there. How
sure.
they do it maybe is, make sure that each time is allocated for them per, blocks of time so they don't get distracted. Like we used to, being in the hospitality industry, every day is something different. Even being a leader
Yeah,
is being different. Even trying to operate the businesses, every day you have something new happen. So just I think the biggest key thing is in this new generation is not to be closed-minded, be open-minded, communication according to the generations
yeah,
that you're surrounding, and just making sure you're consistent, disciplined. But the biggest thing is also to have the passion, because nowadays the kids that are in this generation, they're very intuitive, and the passion has to be there in hospitality. You can't
yes,
just get hospitality without passion.
I
So
agree.
first thing is that they gotta have that in their mind, because if they don't like what they do, they'll never do good at what they are doing.
Amen. I really love what you said, Nancy, around understanding, respecting the differences within the generations. And just because you're in a generation doesn't mean that's the best generation. And I mean, you're talking to someone who's, a baby boomer. I mean, one of the last few years of the baby boomers, and you're right behind me in another generation. But we may share similar ideals, but in terms of collective benefit for everyone to learn, the leader, as you said earlier on, you have to invite them to share their insight. And the younger folks, I hope you are listening to this, and not because someone's 60, not because someone's 40, not because someone's 30. It's because they have an opinion, and respect that. And I would also add, hire people who are diverse.
Yep.
Hire people that have different backgrounds, not just color and race and uh, country, but vast differences in the way they think. Now, again, we all need to be in alignment relative to operating a successful hotel and the financial aspects of it. But it's, if you hire everybody that's just like you, I believe it's going to get boring, and there's going to be someone who's going to be fighting for power here soon. So I don't know.
Yep, I agree with you because diversity within your team by generations is very crucial because each generation can, hold hands with each other and learn off of each other and make
Yeah.
the company a success, right? Because everybody counts.
Everybody counts, and there's a lot of variety in thinking, and there's a lot of variety in assets that people bring to the table, not just me as a person or you as a person, but you have a whole community that you can draw from, and I do as well, and we can go in and maximize all those resources. So great advice. I ask you to share what you would tell a group of young people, because as a younger generation moves into leadership, I want them. I really do, because they're going to be leading the country that I'm living in, assuming I'm in the United States after retirement, so to speak. And I want them to have all the tools and the experience necessary, so frankly, they can be better leaders than we were.
I feel like technology is more based for them. With technology coming in, they're more, social media type of generation. So we have to adapt to their style. And that is the future, whether we like it or not, Greg. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said, to the baby boomers. But yeah, I agree with you. We do need that young generation and that young blood too.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing, and I share this voice with whoever's listening. And yes, the technology is wonderful, but there's nothing like having a real conversation with a real person on a real topic, face to face, listening, communicating, sharing, being vulnerable, being intimate around the conversation. And you just can't hide behind this. And when you're
Yes.
walking down the street, you're not going to notice anything if you're looking down at this little black screen. Driving here from Denver, I look back and love my son. He's got his face buried in something, and I'm looking at these beautiful rain clouds in the distance, and then rainstorm in front of me. And I don't know, I might be a purist to a certain degree, but it's interesting to look out the window once in a while. And if you're listening, I'm not saying that the communication and the phone and the instant response isn't important. It is. Thank you for being responsive, but you also have to take a peek at what's going on around you, and you can't see that if you're looking down at a phone. And just something to keep in mind. I don't know what your view is on that. It just
Um,
I get frustrated.
I have a great view on that one. Because of my community and being on the association of my own community and just generally in business, I see it all the time. How many times have we gone to restaurants and everybody's on the phone? They're on something device, even if they're having a dinner at a restaurant, or people keep the phone right there and just like, oh, I'm not going to answer this, but it's there as a distraction. Just put it away. But what I think, where technology was really overtaking, I think in the past few years, but COVID, which
Yeah.
God, I think, naturally put a slap on everyone's face, was to bring us back to reality of the human touch, I think. Remember, we were all confined, together as a family. We realized the importance of family. We realized the importance of health. We
Amen.
we really realized just generally the importance of life, and meeting people, right? Technology was, like you said, they were all down on their phone till COVID hit, right? Yeah, we were zooming and everything, but they wanted to go out and see people. Remember, our
Yeah.
kids were in school, and then all of a sudden they were home on Zooms and they couldn't even take it. They were mentally getting stressed.
Yeah.
That really showed people. I think COVID should have opened up at least a big perspective. That's technology and social media. There's a time and a place for it, but there's also a time and place where we need that human touch. And with that human touch, you saw what COVID did to us. I think that was a wake up call.
Yeah. Nancy, I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate you taking some time to share your insight, not only about the industry, but women in leadership, leadership in general. Look forward to, looks like we'll be seeing each other in Colorado Springs in November. I'm going to
Yep.
work with Stephanie and Durain and who
Yep.
knows who else on something within women leadership there. So I'll look forward to seeing you.
Well, Doreen was the third one. I forgot. She was the other industry person that I really, really admired, and she's the first one that started some of that Red Roof Forum for women. So definitely, Doreen is one of my top three. So
Durain's she's a hell of a person and just a great and easy person to follow. So thank you
yeah,
again for your time, and
thank you, Greg, for
I'll
having
say,
me. I
I'll
appreciate it.
say goodbye to you, and I'll say hello to anybody that wants to be inspired by a woman who has obviously overcome quite a bit. You heard it. You heard her say it. I didn't even know your story, but reach out to Nancy Patel there in Corpus Christi, Texas, and have a conversation with a real person, a real woman in leadership. And you've been an inspiration to me, Nancy. Thank you again for taking some time. And Frank, I look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you somewhere soon.
Yes, we will, and thank you. And be safe and enjoy your time with your family.
Thank you. You too. See you soon.
Thank. Uh-huh.
This is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership. You just heard from Nancy Patel from Corpus Christi, one of the special ones in our industry, and just a beautiful heart and someone easy to talk to and easy to follow. Again, Nancy, thank you. And for all you listening out there, be kind, be considerate, be curious, and just do something special for someone else today. God bless.